Fellow Toastmasters, the North and the South Pole really are poles apart. If this is the globe, the North Pole is the Arctic region at the top. The Antarctic region surrounds the South Pole at the bottom. And many people don't know the difference between the two, so I hope to change that today. I can sum it up very simply. The Arctic is sea surrounded by land. The Antarctic is land surrounded by sea. And that makes a very profound difference about how the two places behave during the winters and the summers, the creatures that inhabit the regions and what they look like. In the Antarctic, the highest mountain is Mount Vinson. Mount Vinson is 4,897 metres high, so it's fairly high. It sits on top of an Antarctic plateau with an average thickness of 2,300 metres. In the Arctic is basically frozen seawater, which is between 2 and 3 metres thick. The Arctic doesn't have any mountains, it's surrounded by mountains, so it has rivers flowing into the region. The snow that falls on the southern, around the South Pole, gets compacted and is carved off in glaciers. So there are large tabular icebergs, the size as big as Belgium, that come off the South Pole. They don't come off the Arctic because they don't form there. And when the sea, frozen sea, spreads out in summer, there's land to block it. So the Arctic will refreeze. The ice floes will stay frozen and in the following winter will refreeze thicker. So the thickness of the ice floes in the Antarctic is between 1 and 2 metres. You know very well that if you go to the top of a mountain it gets colder, and so Mount Vinson is very cold. And so is the Antarctic plateau. In fact, the Antarctic has the coldest place on Earth. It is the windiest continent on Earth, and it is the driest continent on Earth. It is 89 degrees below zero. It's the coldest place. The winds blow up to 300 kilometres per hour, and it only gets 150 millimetres per year per annum of actual precipitation. There's a lot of snow there. In fact, a lot of the world's snow and ice is locked in Antarctica. 90% of the world's snow and ice is in Antarctica. It holds 70% of the world's fresh water, including all the rivers and lakes, etc., in the rest of the world. So there's a lot of water trapped in that region. Because it's high and because the air is cold, the cold air will fall, much like it falls out of your refrigerator, down the plateau. And that's what develops these really strong winds. The windiest places are places like Mawson. Fortunately, I didn't go there. The Arctic has inhabitants like Eskimos, which are now called Inuits. The Antarctic is only inhabited by scientists. The Antarctic has penguins, it has some species of seals and birds, and a lot of sea creatures because they feed in the sea, and most of them leave the Antarctic during the Antarctic winter. The Arctic has larger animals. They have walrus, they have Arctic fox, they have different sorts of birds, and only a few species will actually go between the two. The oceans around the Antarctic form what they call a circumpolar convergence. The waters don't mix with the rest of the oceans, and there's a fairly sharp distinction between going from the warmer oceans to the Antarctic oceans. By contrast, the Arctic has lots of currents which come up the coasts of the continents, and these affect the ice in the Arctic region. The Arctic has two layers of seawater. It has a salty, cold layer below and a fresh layer sitting on top. So there are different pools of water, but they're quite different between the two different poles. The Arctic region was settled fairly early. People in places like Russia and Alaska, northern Canada, can go up into the Arctic region and they can hunt and they can fish. They can take their dogs. A lot of this is banned by the Antarctic Treaty in Antarctica. If the ice in Antarctica was to melt, I said there was 90% of the snow and ice bound up in Antarctica, then it would raise the sea level quite substantially. In fact, if that was to melt, the scientists estimate that the land underneath would rise by 1 kilometre. Such is the weight of the snow and ice in Antarctica. If the ice in the Arctic melts, this is floating. This is frozen seawater, plus a few glaciers that come in from Greenland and places like that. There are many more glaciers in Antarctica. If the Arctic melts, then the seawater doesn't change. Because if you melt floating ice, it doesn't change the level of the water. And if you want to ponder about that, I recommend you have a think about Archimedes and what he came up with. So they really are quite different places. They have different creatures in the north and the south. And so there are polar bears only in the Arctic. There are no polar bears in the Antarctic. So, Mr. Toastmaster, they really are poles apart.